I'm about to cry right now because I just remember how hard it was. So about a year and a few months ago, I had made a video about how I went raw vegan and I was able to reverse an autoimmune illness. And that video got a lot of attention. And so today I wanted to share with you an update of where I am now with my whole raw vegan journey, my health journey, the illness, all of that. But before we get into that, if you're new here, I kind of want to take you back to the beginning. And if you're not new here, I just kind of want to re-jog your memory of my story. And I hope that my story inspires and uplifts someone that may be going through the same thing or a similar thing. But back in 2020 is when things got dark for me. I don't really remember the date or the month, but I'm gonna say it was maybe late January, February. I started having itchiness on my skin, and more specifically in my private area. And so in my head, I was thinking, oh, maybe I have some girl issues going on. So I went to my primary care physician. Well, no, at that time they were just doing telemed, over the computer because it was COVID. So I set up an appointment with her telemed wise, and telling her my symptoms, and she was like, yeah, it kind of sounds like a yeast infection, but on your skin, so let me give you this and this, which was creams and a pill to take. And I was like, okay, cool, like it's gonna clear up in a few days and I'm gonna be good. It did not clear up, and so I'm just like, okay, that's weird. And at this point, it's still itchy, but now I have like red blotches on my skin, and I had never had that before. So now it's becoming concerning to me, like what the heck? Because in my mind, I have always been a healthy person. Like I'm not a person that frequents the doctor or was on any medication or anything like that. And so I'm just like, what's going on here, body? So I reached back out to her and I'm like, it's not helping. And she was like, well, maybe you just need another round, because at this time it was still just in the private area, right? And so we do another round. It does not help. And while, I'm doing the pharmaceutical medication, if anybody knows me, like I'm Googling, I'm researching. And so I'm trying, remedies on my own by myself and putting on natural creams and trying different drinks and all these different things, right? And it's not helping. Like it's providing a little bit of comfort, but it's not healing it, okay? And so by this point, we're into the next month or so, right? And it's spreading. Now it's starting to show up on my wrist and in my arm folds. Is this an arm fold? I don't know. It's showing up right here. It's getting into my armpits. It's showing up on my back, my lower back, and it's creeping up. And I was just like, what in the is going on? Like I have never had this type of situation happen to me health-wise. So I'm still reaching out to her. She's still thinking it's like yeast fungal infection. It was getting so bad where it was itchy, inflamed and painful. And I was becoming miserable. And so I would go to the immediate care and just kind of tell them what I was told that it was, and they were following those instructions. And so immediate care was giving me stronger antifungals. And when I tell you it wasn't doing anything, it wasn't stopping the itching, it wasn't decreasing the size, it wasn't stopping the inflammation. And at this point, I am just becoming frustrated. I don't remember what point I start losing my hair. I'm gonna say it started in June, but I knew before June that something was going on with my scalp because my hair was no longer, what's the word? It was brittle, okay? Like it felt like a SOS pad, like you scrub your dishes with. It did not have the softness, the bounce, anything. It just was like, ah. And I was just like, what is going on here? And I noticed that it just did not have fullness, right? And so I wasn't putting two and two together. I thought they were two separate things, right? I just thought, well, maybe I need to do a hair treatment or, take some vitamins, things like that. That's kind of how we've been conditioned to operate now, to try to fix it externally. Let's take some pills, let's do a treatment, those type of things. And that's how I was back then, right? And so I just vividly remember one evening I was scratching because then my head started itching really bad. And I noticed that I had like sores in my head. And I was on the couch with my daughter and we were watching what was it, Little Women's is it Little Women of Houston or something like that. I remember it so vividly. I might not have the title right, but I definitely remember watching that scene, watching them, and I was digging in my head and I was coming up, I know this is TMI, but with these big like sores, and I was just like, what is going on with me? Like, I'm in panic mode. So I went to show my fiance or whatever, and he was like, babe, I don't know. Like, I've never seen that before. Calling up the doctor again. At this point, like I said, it's June, and my doctor's like, well, maybe you need to go see a dermatologist. So we went from January, February, all the way to June before it was advised for me to see a dermatologist, right? I didn't get into a dermatologist until I believe December, October, November, December, somewhere in there. I really can't remember. And this is still in 2020. Went to the dermatologist. She was still thinking it was fungal. And she thought, like how I thought, this is two separate health issues. The head and the body is different because the body looked different from the head. I also forgot to mention that I also had it inside my ears where it felt like my equilibrium was off and like I couldn't hear, or sometimes it felt like I was underwater. And then the psoriasis, which I didn't know at the time, it would fill my ear with so much flakes, or it's basically overgrown skin is what psoriasis is, that I would have to manually, more TMI, pull it out like with a bobby pin or something like that. And then I started getting really good where I would get like ear oil and, stick it in there to help loosen the dead skin to get it to come out. But baby, at this point, I'm miserable. I'm crying. I'm upset. I'm about to cry right now because I just remember how hard it was. I remember how hopeless I felt. And before I ever had psoriasis, or I didn't even know it at the time, but before I had ever had any major illness, I would look at people with like psoriasis and eczema and just think, oh, it's just a skin issue. Like, you're fine. You're still healthy. Or can I even say that? Still good. But it just really messes with your mental, with your self-confidence, with your self-esteem. It's just an emotional illness. And I just remember being hopeless, and I just could not understand why me. Why is this happening to me? But now I know why me. It was meant for me. So anyways, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm back. I remember going to the dermatologist. At this point, like I said, I am hopeless. I'm frustrated. I'm just wore out. And I go to her just looking like, here I am. Fix me. Help me. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is like, one of the worst cases of like a skin issue that I've ever seen. And she was like, please don't worry. We're gonna get you together. And it gave me just like a little glimmer of hope, Because like I said, I was trying all these things, and I was even taking the antifungals, still thinking like it's gonna kick in one day. It's gonna kick in one day. So she was like, the body definitely looks like fungal. And she was like, the scalp, I'm not so sure of. She said, I feel like it might be alopecia. And she was like, but in order to determine, because alopecia is, categorized in the autoimmune disorder family, we need to do blood work and we need to do a scalp biopsy. Baby, at this point, I was looking like Angelica's little doll she carried around.
Well, Cynthia, it looks like it's all over for us.
Like, I had little sparse pieces of hair. Like, I probably had lost 80% of my hair, if not more. So we get that scheduled. I do lab work that day, I believe, and I come back for the scalp biopsy, which was painful, but I was like, let's get it done, okay? Let's figure out what's wrong with me. You know, it takes probably like a week to get the results. And I find out that I definitely have an autoimmune illness, and the scalp in the body is the same thing. I have psoriasis. And so when I heard psoriasis in my head, I was like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But you know, she was like, you know, well, let me rewind. So, you know, my questions is probably like everybody's questions. How did I get this? How do I heal it? How do I get rid of it? Right. And she was like, well, you know, we really don't know what causes it. It could be stress. Are you going through any extra stress at work or in your personal life? And I was like, well, the only thing I really do is work out. Yeah, my job is a little stressful, but nothing out of the norm. And she's like, well, maybe working out is contributing to the psoriasis. So maybe take a break on that and just do like yoga and stuff. And she was like, as far as healing it, psoriasis is incurable. And when she said that to me, my heart just sunk into my stomach. I was just like, what? How am I this young with an incurable illness? And we don't know how I got it. And just to kind of like a side note, I was eating a clean American standard diet, meaning I was still eating meat and I was still having dairy, but I was definitely incorporating fruits and vegetables. And I would have like, if I were to give you an example of a, you know, what I eat in the day back then, I would have like overnight oats with, you know, berries on top. And then for lunch, I would probably have like salmon and some veggies, and dinner, you know, I might have like chicken breasts and some veggies or whatever. But I was consuming a lot of caffeine in the form of pre-workout and in the form of like coffee, right? And so that was kind of like my day-to-day thing. And of course, like on the weekends with my family, like we would go get pizza, but I wasn't overindulgent. So in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm good, I'm healthy. Anyways, so fast forward to, or go back to, you know, her telling me, you know, this is incurable, but we do have medication that will help it and get rid of the symptoms. So if you know anything about psoriasis or autoimmune, they typically prescribe you suppressants in the form of steroids. She prescribed me a lot of different creams like the hydrocortisone, and then she gave me a stronger one than that. I can't remember the name. I'll put it here on the screen. And then, oh, I'm missing a part. Before I had the scalp biopsy done and the blood work done, she was like, let's try prednisone to see if it's autoimmune. And so she basically had me do like a taper situation where I started off with a lot of pills and then taper down to, you know, just one pill a day to see if it improved my symptoms as far as like getting rid of the, which, you know, I didn't know then that was psoriasis, but that would get rid of the skin lesions or skin plaque. And while I was taking that, I knew that I didn't want to take that for the rest of my life because I've heard so many horror stories about prednisone. And my mother actually was taking it, I can't remember for what, but I watched her have terrible side effects, like her lips swole up one time and they turned completely black. I'm rabbit trailing now. Anyways, and so I knew I didn't want to take that, but if you know anything about autoimmune illnesses, you know that you want some type of relief immediately. So I did it. I took it. And I noticed that my symptoms were improving. And so I did have an inkling that this could be autoimmune related once I seen my symptoms improve. Then she gave me the diagnosis. And then, okay, let's go back. And then she was like, we can do creams. We can do the prednisone again and keep doing the taper method with you where one moment you're on and then you come off, because my biggest thing was I don't want steroid withdrawal syndrome, if you know anything about that. Like, I was hip to that. I knew that. And she's like, oh no, you'll be fine because we do like, on 1 week or on 2 weeks, off a week, or so, I can't remember what it was. And she's talking about the creams and the pills. And it still just wasn't sitting right with me. For one thing, who wants to take medication for the rest of their life? I know I don't. And medication has worse side effects than it actually helping you. And so I just like, deep down, something in my heart, my soul was like, nah, we're not doing this. And then she was like, or we have the other option of doing a biologic injection. So basically you're taking a shot. And some of the shots are like every quarter, so you would take it every 3 months. And I was just like, oh no, I'm not doing no injection. That reminded me of like being a diabetic and having to take insulin. I was like, no. I left that appointment frustrated, in disbelief, but I was also had a little bit of happiness that I could help get some relief from my symptoms. So I did. I filled my prescription for just the creams. I didn't do the pills anymore because I knew, watching my mother with prednisone, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that one. So I got my creams filled and I was using them and I was following her instructions with the 2 weeks on, 1 week off. And I could have that totally wrong, so don't quote me on that. And things were getting better, but they were still there. They weren't going away. I feel like with like any illness that you have, there's like this underlining feeling. And like, even when I get colds or like the flu, there's like this underlining feeling that I have, like, I'm not well. I don't feel well. Does it make sense? I'm not sure. But that's how I feel. It's just like a lingering feeling that I'm like, something's not right. And I honestly feel like it's your body telling you, giving you a warning sign, like, you got to get something in check because we're not okay right here. So I'm, doing those creams, but I still have that underlying feeling that I'm not well. I'm not okay. And at this point, even before that, when she's giving me the diagnosis, it started to turn like Charlie Brown words, rah, 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 rah. And I was just like, there ain't no way that I'm about to be on medication for the rest of my life. There is no way you telling me that this is incurable. There is no way that Assyria is doing this. There was something deep down that said, do your own research. You can get rid of this. Because the reason I think that I have that mindset is because any opposition that I have had in my life, I keep researching and keep trying to figure it out until I get it right? Or till I fix it, heal it, whatever it is. And so this was the same situation. I was like, I am not going to be one of them. I'm going to figure this out. So I was kind of hip into like Dr. Sabi, Dr. Robert Morse, the alkaline diet, Queen Afu, and so many other things. So that was another reason why I had like a glimmer of hope. Like, I'm gonna figure this out naturally. And like I said, I feel like it was my inner voice, like God within me telling me, nah, that ain't it, baby. Keep on looking. So at this point, I'm doing all kind of research. I'm trying all different type of diets. I was doing like the what is it called, yeast and candida cleanse, no sugar diet, thinking that that was what was causing it. I was doing the autoimmune protocol diet, and through those two diets, oh, and I also was doing the elimination and reintroduction diet, and through those three diets I seen improvement, but I did not see healing. Okay, So then I landed upon Dr. John Pagano's, I forgot the title, but I think it says Healing Psoriasis. And my mind was blown. He started talking about how, a lot of skin issues, psoriasis, eczema, a lot of skin issues are stemmed from the gut. And that was something that I never heard before. And doctors don't talk about that. Oh, I forgot a key moment. Let me say it real quick because I'm gonna forget it. I was telling my doctor when I was going to like my checkups, like, hey, I'm trying this diet to see if it will help, because at this point that's when I started doing my research and learning that psoriasis is not just a skin issue. The skin issue is actually the symptoms of something bigger, deeper inside. And I'm like, yeah, I stopped, eating all kind of like processed sugars and stuff like that. And she flat out said to me, she's like,
Oh, honey, life's too short. Eat the sugar, have the sweets. I promise you, it has nothing to do with that.
and I kind of was like, I really had lost faith in her when she said that to me, because I was like, no, like in my head, like I wanted to argue with her, like, no, but from what I'm researching, this makes more sense than what you're telling me. But I just was like, oh, okay. Anyways, going back to John Pagano, I'm so sorry, I'm like rabbit trailing, but I want to make sure I tell you everything, right? So, he's talking about the gut connection. Like when we eat food, the majority of us do not think food is for nutrition. I mean, we do, but I don't think we like break it down, right? Food is for nutrition for your cells in your body. Your cells make tissues, and those tissues make glands and organs, right? In order for them to work right, to keep you alive, to keep you thriving, right? You have to make sure that you're feeding your body with the right type of foods. And many of us eat for the taste and to satisfy not feeling hungry, right? It's an emotional and comfort thing food does for us, but honestly, it's fuel to keep us alive. This body is our vessel, is our vehicle, right? To keep the soul moving and doing great things, hopefully, in this world. And when we're just eating because it tastes good or to satiate, then we could be doing more harm than good. And so basically, John Pagano was talking about like these foods that we eat. He was hitting on inflammation can either cause inflammation in the body or can help, make you thrive or to keep you healthy. And then he was naming dairy as an inflammatory food, meat. Well, he still uses meat in his healing protocol, but most meats can cause inflammation. Besides, I think he allowed chicken, turkey, and I believe fish, but I could be wrong on that. It's been so long since um, I checked out his protocol, but that's what I started with. Okay, and so then grains can cause inflammation, caffeine can cause inflammation. Our sugary processed drinks can cause inflammation. Gluten, did I say gluten? Gluten can cause inflammation. Alcohol, drinking alcohol can cause inflammation. And then there are some fruits and veggies that can cause inflammation, like your nightshade family, which is like your eggplants, your tomatoes, your potatoes, peppers. Any vegetable in a pepper family can cause inflammation. They have like a chemical that inside of them that cause inflammation in us, or can. Sometimes avocados and strawberries can cause inflammation. And then I'm trying to think, did I get everything? Every time I give the list, I feel like I forget something. So I'll make sure I put it on the screen or in the description box. So anyway, so I'm learning like, oh gosh, like I do have a lot of these things. I do consume these, and it was making sense how these foods can basically irritate the gut lining and eventually break it down where you get something that's called leaky gut. Then your skin wants to help, and so it's pulling out those toxins and those wastes through the skin. And so that's when we see the illnesses like psoriasis and eczema and acne, boils, tumors, things like that, because your skin is trying to help pull out those toxins that you can't eliminate the right way. And so I'm reading all this and it was making so much sense. And then he introduced me into fasting with fruit, monofruit fasting. And monofruit fasting is basically using one type of fruit and eating that throughout the day. And you have water and herbal teas with it. The idea for fasting or monofruit fasting is to give the body a break from digesting all the time. And when you pick one type of fruit, if you didn't know this, which is what I learned, your body digests each type of food group differently. So how it digests watermelon is different than how it digests an apple, because they're not the same, right? And so they take different processes to digest them. And so when you're on a fast, you want to just pick one type of food group, and it gives your digestive system a break because it doesn't have to do extra chemical processes to break it down. I hope that makes sense. So I went on the journey of doing monofruit fasting and going by his protocol, which was more fruits, more vegetables. You could have some meats or whatever, but they definitely weren't like red meat and stuff like that. And then he also introduced me to herbs. His herbs of choice were like slippery elm root and saffron tea or whatever. So I was doing this, and like I said, I was seeing improvement, but I wasn't being healed. And so then I found Dr. Robert Morris, which I had known about him, and I had, listened to some of his YouTube videos, but I never like took the plunge to do anything he was saying, because at that time I thought I was healthy, So I got back to him in his book, the Detox Miracle Source book, or the Miracle Detox Source book. But that is the book, and that is the man that has completely changed my life. Here I am getting emotional again. Okay, cut. So I started reading his book, and he was saying similar things that Dr. John Pagano was saying, but he eliminated all meat, nothing but raw fruits and raw veggies. And that's when I got onto the raw vegan side, because with John Pagano, he was, saying that you could have cooked fruits or not fruits, but cooked veggies or whatever, but you wanted to eliminate those inflammatory foods. But with Dr. Robert Morris, he said go completely raw. And the thought behind completely raw is when we cook our food, we cook the nutrients out. You're cooking out the vitamins and the minerals and antioxidants, all the good stuff, right? And when you eat completely whole plant and raw, then you are absorbing all the nutrients that the body needs to heal, repair, and rejuvenate cells in the body. And he was talking about all these diseases, the majority of diseases that can be healed with just diet alone. And a lot of these diseases that we have, or diseases that we have, has been contributed to the foods that we eat. And unfortunately, we just weren't taught this. And I mean, it makes sense why we weren't taught this, because the industry influences and runs the food industry. And if we were just eating all fruits and vegetables, you wouldn't need, you get what I'm saying? So you got what I'm saying, okay? I don't want to say too much, but so I said, you know what? I'm ready for a change. If this man, because I can understand it, it makes sense to me, if this man has said that he has helped people heal all these things that he has said, then how come it can't be done for psoriasis? So I went on a 40-day raw vegan challenge. Nothing but raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw nuts, and raw seeds. And the things that I experienced, I said I was only gonna do like 30 days just to see how it was gonna go, right? But I went full 40, and then I went a full year. But during those 40 days, I learned the power of the food that we put in our body. I learned how man has confused us so much with technology, pharmaceuticals, social media, all these things. It was more of a spiritual awakening for me. It just blew up all the beliefs that I thought were true. And when I say that, I mean, I started to see not only my skin clearing, but I had adult acne since puberty started, right? And I had like the worst skin. I was really greasy, oily, huge pores right here. I would get acne all along my neck, around, down my neck, my chest area, sometimes on my back. That all went away. And I was like, I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't putting two and two together. But one day I had just looked in the mirror, and then people on social media, because I was sharing my story on social media, it was like, girl, your skin is really clear. And I was like, it is. Then I noticed that my digestion, baby, my digestion has been trash since probably middle school is when I really noticed it. I remember having a slumber party. We used to like rent hotels, back in the day. Probably still do it, and get all your girlfriends or whatever, to have a slumber party in a hotel room. And I remember I had just got done having pizza, and my stomach hurt so bad, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. It was hurting so bad where I had to just lay down. I couldn't even participate in my own like slumber party. And I, since then, was having stomach issues, really gassy and bloaty, indigestion, like you name it. Like I had experienced it from middle school all the way until then. And then once I started that 40 days, I noticed that my stomach was improving as far as my digestion. I was going to the restroom 3-4 times a day. If I did have gas, then it was very seldom. It was probably like once or twice a day instead of all day long, okay? I noticed that I wasn't having any bloating, gurgling, all that type of stuff, no burps. And then when I would go to the restroom, or if I would pass gas, it had no scent. And I was just like, this is the weirdest stuff. I was not used to this. Like I would go to the restroom, get ready to flush, and I wouldn't even need to use no spray. I know that's TMI, but I'm serious. And so I was like, this is crazy. This is interesting. Then I also noticed that month that I went raw vegan, when I had my menstrual, usually I have my menstrual for like 5 to 7 days, and it is met with extreme cramping and bloating. I only had a menstrual for 3 days, and I barely had any cramps. And then I told you I went from 40 days to a full year. Baby, my menstruation would be 1 day. Sometimes it would range. It would be like 1, sometimes it'd be 2 days, sometimes it'd be 3 days, but I hardly ever had cramps, and my menstruals were shortened. I also noticed that my insomnia and my anxiety improved so much, because prior to even knowing that I had psoriasis, I felt like I was always in a fight or flight mode. Like that's just how I felt, and I feel like that was from the caffeine that I was consuming. And at night, like I couldn't sleep. I promise you, I would go to sleep every night prior and like during when I had psoriasis, before it was diagnosed, I would go to sleep between 2 to 3 a.m. and then have to get up at 6. And so I was operating like that every single day. And once I started eating raw vegan, baby, I was sleeping like a baby. The anxiety, the fight or flight, it went away. There are so many things that I can tell you that improved from me going raw vegan, but most importantly, the psoriasis went away. It was gone. It dried up. I had no more of the itchy, inflamed symptoms, and my hair was growing back. So we fast forward to 2022. In 2022, I got this great idea. Well, I'm going to do high raw vegan. And high raw vegan is basically incorporating some cooked vegan foods into your raw vegan meals or replacing a meal. And I have a few reasons of why I wanted to do this, or we could say excuses. The first one was that I felt alone and isolated eating this way. My family didn't eat that way. They ate and still eat an American Standard diet. And dinner time was lonely for me. And so I figured, well, when I prepare their meals and cook their meals, their sides would be vegetables, vegan or whatever. So I could have those sides, I could incorporate those into my meals. And not only that, I was having to prepare their food and my food. And so that was hard for me. Um, Number two is that I just wanted to eat cooked food. Old habits die hard. Like, I miss cooked meals. And then number three was I was ready to start gaining weight. I was ready to start being about my weight goals, right? Because with a raw vegan diet and fasting, you will lose weight. And I look at that because a lot of people fear going raw vegan and fasting. They're like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose all this weight. You will lose some weight, but not all of it. But you have to understand that weight was built on eating all these processed foods, American Standard diet, inflammatory foods. You now have toxins and waste in the body. You're basically getting rid of all of that. And I also use the analogy of it's like building a house, right, with bad materials, with a bad foundation. Yeah, it looks good on the outside, but it's horrible in the inside, and it's about ready to break down, right? So my logic with eating cooked foods was with a raw vegan diet, you actually have to consume more fruits and vegetables to meet your calories. And I thought, well, if I could have some cooked foods like, your staples, your chickpeas and your lentils, I could have a smaller portion of food and still meet my calories. Like, I only need a small amount of chickpeas versus all these fruits and vegetables that I had to eat to meet my calories. And then that's what led me into the thought of, this is going to cost me more eating all these fruits and vegetables. But when I really sat down and planned my meals for the week, I wasn't spending any more than what I was spending on an American Standard diet. And actually, on American Standard diet, I was spending more because I was not tracking my meals. I was mindlessly buying food and fast food and spending money at the grocery store. And it was when I started to go raw vegan, I had to plan out my meals and plan out my budget, that I noticed that I was actually spending less. And I also had to remind myself, Asheria, would you rather spend money on organic plant-based food, or would you rather spend money for the rest of your life on medications, possible surgeries, radiation, and treatments? So every reason or excuse that I had was just that, an excuse. And I had to meet it with truth. I had to sit down and think, like, first of all, this ain't what God told you to do. This ain't what your inner voice told you to do. And so I had to get myself together. I also, through the journey from 2022 to 2023 of mixing raw foods with cooked foods, I started to notice that I was having digestive issues again, with the bloating and the gas and the gurgling and digestion. And so, like I said, the inner voice told
me, this ain't what I told you to do. I told you to go raw vegan and stick with it. And so since you don't want to listen, this is what happens.
Because one thing about raw vegan, your body becomes so pure, so clean, and it will let you know if it does not like something. So if you try to go back to like American Standard diet or put food in your body that your body is not messing with, it's going to let you know in the form of digestive issues. It's going to scream at you. And so coming into 2024, I just got off a parasite cleanse, a 30-day parasite cleanse. And I said, you know what? I'm making the commitment to go back fully raw for 2024. And here I am today. The journey continues. And within that journey, There are some non-physical things that have changed for me as well. I enrolled in Dr. Robert Morris's International Healing Art School. So he has a naturopathy school that I enrolled in the latter part of December 2023, and I'm still in it today. Because this journey has just been such a beautiful, transformative journey, and I want to learn and know everything that I can so I can help my friends and family, my community, and even help the world. And also from that, I have enrolled in herbalism school. I just started that at the beginning of this month, and that has been a great experience because I didn't talk about it much, but I've also used herbs to help in my healing journey, but I'll make another video about that. But just the journey itself has brought me to a place of focus, discernment, clarity, and knowing that the answers lie within us and the answers lie within nature. Man has confused us so much and distracted us so much with, media, social media, technology, with medicine. And the answers that we seek, especially about healing, are so simple, but man makes it so complex that it keeps us not healed. It keeps us managing. And I just want more people to know that. And so I've been sharing that all across my social media platforms, from Instagram, TikTok, here on YouTube, and I even created a Facebook group where we do quarterly challenges. Like, we'll do raw vegan challenges for 30 days, mono fruit fasting, juice fasting, parasite cleanses. And so I just want to reach as many people as I can from my journey and what I have experienced. So if you made it all the way to the end of this video, I thank you so much for following me on this journey. If you enjoyed this video and this type of content and want to see more, please hit the like button, subscribe, and comment below any questions that you have.